Are you one of the 1.5 million Georgians without health insurance? Visit georgiaaccess.gov to connect with the resources to find affordable private and public health care options. You may be eligible for financial assistance programs, including Medicaid and Peach Care for Kids. Even healthy people need coverage. An unexpected medical emergency can hurt you and your wallet. Open enrollment for health insurance plans ends January 15th, so don't wait. Visit georgiaaccess.gov today. The building where the white parents wanted it. A few years later, the school finally opened. And then, none of them sent their kids there. I went through this box of letters, called as many parents as I could. Not a single person actually sent their kid to the school. Not one. What happened?
I remember thinking very clearly that, okay, I believe in this, but I don't sort of want to sacrifice my children to it.
No, as I said, I'm a Quaker, and so my kids went to the Quaker school.
But you were a Quaker when you wrote this letter, asking for an integrated community.
I believe in it, but...
And I think that we say a lot of things that are politically correct without even realizing that we are not telling exactly how we feel.
For years, I've been looking for an answer to the question, why don't public schools work better? What is getting in the way of giving each child an equal opportunity, an equal education? But now, I think I've been looking in the wrong places for what's broken in our schools. I think you can't understand what's broken if you don't look here at one of the most powerful forces shaping public education, white parents. From Serial Productions, it's Nice White Parents, a new show about the 60-year relationship between white parents and the public school down the block. I'm Chana Joffe-Walt. Nice White Parents, wherever you get your podcasts.
Listen and follow this podcast for free on the iHeartRadio app. #1 for music, radio, and podcasts all in one.
The people have spoken, and they love our lineup. Colin Cowherd, Dan Patrick, LeVar Arrington, Brady Quinn, Jonas Knox, Doug Gottlieb, Ben Maller.
Listen to these names.
Rob Parker, Chris Broussard, Covino and Rich, Jason Smith, and Mike Harmon. We're always on, from the mornings to the late nights. Our Fox Sports Radio, the premier sports lineup in the nation.
Phone calls coming up. You got the Lions and the Packers Sunday night. But if Seattle loses earlier in the day, then what's the scenario where it won't matter what happens? If Seattle wins, then the Lions, it won't matter. I'm trying to think, is there...
Let me ask for
maybe I should have discussed that before I turn on this microphone. Marv, do you have the scenario there with... Is there a scenario where the game on Sunday night won't mean anything?
Seattle will win the... No, as a matter of fact, it's so long, it's a paragraph long. I have to get through it. Like Todd was saying this, he was like, look, I'd rather wait until the season's over and just let me know what the seedings are, because it is so, if they win, and if they win by a tie, not a tie, or if they,
these best case, worst case scenarios. Marcellus Wiley is set to join us, the former All-Pro defensive end and host of More to It podcast on the Dan Patrick Podcast Network, available wherever you listen to your podcast. This week, he tells us why LeBron's not loving the game the same as he used to, why Joe Burrow may cruise to another Super Bowl appearance, and why everyone says Happy New Year. Wrong. Where do you want to start with that? How about it? We get it wrong by not saying Happy New Year's?
Well, actually, that's how we get it wrong. Happy New Year's. Like, we're about to just go from 2022 to 2023, 2024, 2025. Like, it's only 1 year. And it caught me off guard, too. My wife was just eye-rolling me December 31st. I'm like, walking up to everyone, Happy New Year's, Happy New Year's. She finally just tapped me on the shoulders like, you know you're getting that wrong. And I was like, what? And she was like, dude, are you trying to make New Year more than 1 year? And once I looked at it, of course I didn't give her credit in the moment, but I had to take a step back. And now I'm just counting everybody who gets it wrong, including you, Dan. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Well, I say Happy New Year, but I was wondering when you were correcting people, then maybe I was getting it wrong by saying Happy New Year.
Not even confident in it. See, that's the point. I don't think we get it.
Yeah. Happy New Year. All right. Monday night, you're watching. What are you thinking as that play unfolds when you have the tackle by Hamlin with T. Higgins?
Whew, so much to unpack here. Let's take it live in the moment as I'm sitting on the couch with my 7-year-old son who loves football even more than I did as an active player. He's just all into it. We're watching it, and in live time, the way that T. Higgins turned upfield made me as a defender say, oh, like this was an abrupt change of what you anticipated. That is not placing blame on him. That's just saying, oh, you caught me off guard. Now, when he caught him off guard with the head, helmet, crown to the neck, head area, tackle, all of that force also you're caught off guard, and it landed right on Damar Hamlin. Fine, he jumps up. Only thing that happened to me in that moment was like, ooh, that would have caught me. That would have hurt me a little bit. Whatever. He pops up, everything's fine. And then you realize everything's not fine. And what a tragic visual to see. Someone fighting for their life. Not fighting in the NFL football sense for the next yard or the extra yard or for a touchdown. Fighting to stay alive. And literally, I started crying. My son asked me 2 things in the moment. He's like, Dad, is he going to live? And then he follows that up by saying, Dad, I'm glad that didn't happen to you when you played football. And that's why I was crying, fighting it back to stay strong and show face for my family. But I really was emotional because I've taken thousands of hits. I've given thousands of hits. And to ever see that can be the reality, because I've never seen that on a full conversation in our home. My son always asks, Dad, has anyone ever died playing football? And I always say heat exhaustion, training camp, but no one's ever died playing football. And in that moment, that was in jeopardy.
What about the idea of continuing to play that game at any point? Did you sense that the NFL was leaving open that window?
Absolutely, they were. And this is going to sound harsh, but they should have had to contemplate leaving that window open. Let me tell you why. The example I have is my mother passed away when I was an active player, 2005. And I remember when she passed away, the first thing I thought is life would never be the same. I thought I would never stop being preoccupied with the loss of my mother. And then I also thought going to bed that night that the sun wouldn't rise. I also thought that the clouds would cover the whole planet. I just thought everything was going to be different. And you know what happened the next day? This is the moment where I realized you have to compartmentalize no matter what you're going through in tragedy. I had to go to the doctor. I had to go to the mortuary. I had to go to the florist. I had to start making plans. Point being, there is someone's job, no matter how they're emotionally affected, to still keep the train on the tracks. They are preoccupied with something else. I fast forward to my mother's funeral. People are cracking jokes. People are laughing like, what you going to serve when we get back to the house? And everyone's in a different lane, affected emotionally, but different tasks at hand. It felt harsh for me even to think about that. But I was talking to my wife in the moment. I was like, you know they have something to think about in this moment. Are they going to continue? Next man up mentality. Or are they really going to stop this game? So it's not to say that they made the wrong or right decision. It meant that they had a decision to make.
Yeah, and I just wondered if they knew that Hamlin was going to be okay. An hour later, and the players are still there, still in uniform, in their locker room. I wonder if they would have tried to squeeze that in.
Oh, absolutely. Like the bottom line interest was to continue to play that football game. The only thing that abrupted that was the fact that you didn't know how he was doing in terms of his condition. So when they started to look and say, oh, he fell down, oh, he got got a concussion, whatever first steps, what you're thinking, the normal response. In that moment, the NFL is thinking, okay, you guys got a few minutes probably, go to the sidelines and we'll go back. But when it became a life and death situation without closure, the NFL finally had to suspend that game because they knew that those players couldn't come back to that field without closure. Any other injury we've seen, including concussion, including Tua, who stands up and then just passes out. When you have some form of closure or understanding of what's going on, you can proceed. But when you don't, obviously the NFL made the right choice finally, and they had to suspend it.
He's Marcellus Wiley, the former All-Pro defensive end and host of the podcast More to It, available on the Dan Patrick Podcast Network. You start to look at a couple other things with, you mentioned Joe Burrow. Like, what is it about Joe Burrow that you're seeing that shows or proves last year was not a one-off? This is who he really is.
Yes, between the ears with Joe Burrow, man. He has all the talent in the world, but it's more so his moxie, his mentality. You know how they started off this season, 0-2, started slow. And Joe Burrow is just someone you can hang your hat on. I think this team rallies around him, and more so, they believe in him because he believes that he can overcome all adversity. And that's what I'm seeing from this team. Like, they're greater than the sum of its parts. And they're a talented team, but they play even greater than that because of their belief system. It seems like there are 52 guys that believe in Joe Burrow, and he believes that he can conquer all. And when you have a leader like that, you start to feel invincible. You start to feel like, okay, I can do everything because I'm in connection, osmosis, with the guy who can do it all. So, but Joe Burrow is scary because you can never count him out.
Is the opposite going on in Denver?
Yes and no. We were warned about Russell Wilson, and no one wanted to believe it and buy into it fully. We heard from teammate after teammate that he lacked leadership, authenticity. We heard from teammate after teammate that he's not the guy that we think he is. And I think we took that in terms of personality only, but some guys were actually saying, oh, he's not the baller you think he is. Top defense his first 4 years, top defenses usually, great running game, Pete Carroll. And I think now we're starting to realize, oh, we may should have given more credence to some of those conversations. But you know what they did in Seattle? They just cleaned the locker room of anybody who disagreed with Russell Wilson cooking. And now we're starting to realize maybe that wasn't the smartest decision. He lands in Denver. You have a first-year head coach. I'm sure he's trying to grind the same, checking all the same boxes. But when you don't have that in you, guys who don't have success with you are going to be sitting there doubting. Guys are going to be sitting on the outside saying, you got to bring me in if you're Russell Wilson, because your reputation is one thing. It preceded you, but it's not going to help lead me. And I think that's where we are right now in the crossroads of Russell Wilson having to galvanize, having to start this train and this momentum again instead of carrying and riding with what he had in Seattle.
I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and it sounded crazy to say it, but I still firmly believe it, that I needed less Aaron Rodgers for the Green Bay Packers to be successful. I needed the running game, and I needed the defense, and I needed Aaron Rodgers to come up with a couple of big plays. I just didn't need him to be the epicenter here. And maybe I'm crazy in saying that. It just feels like they're a better team when they run the football. That defense has stepped up, and then Aaron can now make a couple of throws with those young receivers.
I see where you're coming from, and I get it. At certain times, you need all Aaron Rodgers, especially early in the season, even in failure. You know why? With a roster full of guys who, especially in the receiving core, who are really trying to get their bones, they needed Aaron Rodgers to take those hits for them, need to be the leader that he is. But then, what you're talking about is later in the season, those guys have to be so inspired and encouraged that they're actually productive, that they actually step up in a leadership role. So you basically got to activate those guys, but you got to be the first act if you're Aaron Rodgers. And I've been on teams like that before when you're like looking around, Junior Seau, Bruce Smith, somebody has to break the glass. And then we all can go run through through and get what we want. And it's a situation where Aaron Rodgers, I think early in the season, he just had to go out there and show all these guys, hey, you can take your lumps, we can fall down, we will get back up, and you will stay alive even in defeat. Now those guys believe that. They have the experience and they have that leadership.
You mentioned on the podcast why LeBron's not loving the game the same. Why?
Yeah, LeBron James came out and said that playing basketball without winning is not in his DNA anymore. And on the surface, that sounds amazing. That sounds like a true winner. Like, oh, Jordan, look out. LeBron only plays when he wants to win, and he is winning. Then you take a step back. You know, like the old adage, nope, it doesn't matter how smart you are if you don't stop and think. And you stop and think about that. You say, wait a minute. Are you still in love with the process? Well, the results will make you think he is. Okay, are you still in love with your individual success, putting up 27-6? The results say you are. But then you start to realize, wait a minute, you're saying you don't love what you're doing unless there's team success. Does that matter if you're not having individual success? Does that even play into how you're approaching the game, processing the game, and preparing for the game? So I thought that even though it was supposed to be a hard stamp of I'm a winner or else, made me actually question a little bit more about LeBron James and how he's getting to this place. I know he's falling out of control, but sometimes the results can make us think different than the process.
And you know how this game is played, the media game and topics that you have on a show. And I was wondering, why is it that Kawhi Leonard doesn't get criticized? Anthony Davis does. He plays for the Lakers. If Kawhi played for the Lakers, then he would probably get criticized. I think the reason why he doesn't get criticized for not playing is he plays for the Clippers. I mean, is it that simple? If Anthony Davis played for the Clippers, he would not receive anywhere near this attention. And they're a better team than the Lakers.
Well, Anthony Davis didn't receive his attention in New Orleans either.
No.
And I get what you're saying to the point. As I look at my Clippers chair over there, I'm going to defend my team in a weird way. Have you ever noticed this dynamic? The team that loses in the Super Bowl feels worse than the team that didn't even make the playoffs. I've seen that 1,000 times. I felt that. I've never been in the Super Bowl. And I've been on teams that didn't make the playoffs. Then I talked to my boy who lost the Super Bowl, and he's dead. And I'm like, dude, I ain't even get a shot. I think that's happening with Anthony Davis versus Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard taps out. He's absent from those moments that we're so hypercritical. So we're not hypercritical of him. He doesn't even jump in. It's almost like the world is saying, you're better off not trying than trying and failing. And I see that happening a lot more in terms of the criticism, in terms of the spotlight on the guy.
Always great to talk to you. Appreciate your insights. Thank you.
All right, take care, D.
That's Marcellus Wiley, former All-Pro defensive end and host of More to It, Dan Patrick Podcast Network. All right, so the Lions need a win coupled with a Seahawks loss or a tie against the Rams this weekend to make the playoffs.
So the Lions just can't win their way in.
No.
They need help.
They need a win and a...
The Lions just playing just to play.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how you make Sunday night meetings. I thought there was a scenario there. But then I think Dan Campbell said, look, we're playing to get in or we're going to play spoiler here. Because the Packers still need to win. All right, let's take a break. Last call for phone calls, what we learned, what's in store tomorrow, right after this. There's nothing more thrilling than college football when it all comes down to the national title game. And your go-to betting is DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on college football and get $200 in free bets instantly, win or lose. Plus, everybody can combine multiple bets for a bigger payout with DraftKings same-game parlays. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. User code Patrick. New customers can bet just $5 on college football and get $200 in free bets instantly. That's code Patrick, only at DraftKings.
21 plus in most most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ohio. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Bonus issued as free bets. Eligibility and terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms.
When you open up a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van, you're unlocking potential. The potential to do your own thing. Be your own boss. Steer your own success. Blaze your own trail. Each and every Sprinter van built, designed, and equipped to let you hit the open road and take on any goal. To help you follow your passions, reawaken that spirit of adventure, check all of those big, bold, exciting experiences off your bucket list. Owning a Sprinter van lets you live, work, and play out your dreams wherever they take you. 16 body types, a choice of gas or diesel engine, thousands of ways to customize. It's capable and versatile enough to help drive your ambitions. And now you could win your own Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van customized by Gretsch RV by entering the Dan Patrick Show's Ultimate Fan Van Sweepstakes. To enter, get official rules, visit danpatrick.com for your chance to win the Sprinter van. So go ahead, now's the time. Unlock your potential inside a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van.
Are you one of the 1.5 million Georgians without health insurance? Visit georgiaaccess.gov to connect with the resources to find affordable private and public health care options. You may be eligible for financial assistance programs including Medicaid and Peach Care for kids. Even healthy people need coverage. An unexpected medical emergency can hurt you and your wallet. Open enrollment for health insurance plans ends January 15th, so don't wait. Visit georgiaaccess.gov today.
Para que mis hijos vayan a la escuela contentos, les pongo doble tarea cada mañana. Doble tarea de McDonald's, claro, donde consigo 2 desayunos por solo $2.29. Elige 3 sausage biscuit asado a la perfección, un calientito sausage McMuffin, sabrosos chicken McGriddle y crujientes y doraditos hash browns, 2 de ellos por solo $2.29. Y añade un refrescante Ice Coffee de cualquier tamaño por solo $1.69. Precios y participación puede variar, no puede combinarse con ninguna otra oferta o combo meal. Producto individual a precio regular.
The free iHeartRadio app is #1 for music, radio, and podcasts, all in one. Discover a new podcast from our library of over 350,000 titles. Here's an iHeartRadio podcast preview.
I want to ask you if Fred Rogers were here today and you could sit down with him and he sat across from you and said, "Hi, Ashley, it's nice to meet you. I'm Fred." I want to know what you would ask him.
It wouldn't be one question. I want you to tell me about every person you've ever loved. I think there's so much to learn from listening to people talk about the people who make them feel a certain way.
So there I am, on the couch with Mr. Rogers.
Wow, look at your face.
Look at my face. The way that he looked at me, I felt like he saw me.
When we people can understand our feelings and talk about them, we're free to be who we like being.
For 30 years, Mr. Rogers looked through our television screens and said to millions of kids, "I see you. I like you just the way you are." But what do we miss about Fred's message when we only focus on the sweater and the sneakers? I mean, does Fred Rogers matter today?
I think a lot of people just thought that he was very simplistic, but there was an incredible depth and call to action on the show.
I'm Carvel Wallace, and this is Finding Fred.
Listen and follow this podcast for free on the iHeartRadio app. #1 for music, radio, and podcasts, all in one.
The free iHeartRadio app is #1 for music, radio, and podcasts all in one. Discover a new podcast from our library of hundreds of thousands of titles. Here's an iHeartRadio podcast preview.
Season 5 of Revisionist History, where we lurch once again from the sublime to the ridiculous, with stops along the way for digressions of great importance, like Nachas and its opposite.
So Nachas being like the joy that your children give you, and this word being...
Yuchas.
Yeah, the one that you give them.
This is a season of Yuchas on Revisionist History, where I bring you some joy. Plus, a whole lot of serious things as well. Like, how do we remember those who have suffered? And how do we remember those who brought suffering into the world?
I'd rather have somebody who is real stupid, but
On Fox Sports Radio.
You shut up!
Why are we blowing up socially?
Why?
It's because of you.
Uh-oh.
You want the videos on our YouTube channel? Just search for Fox Sports Radio.
yes,
I know. You want to comment on our tweets? Tweet. Hell, I can tweet what I want to. At Fox Sports Radio. And you want us in your timeline. You need us in your timeline.
Don't forget, you can follow us on social media.
That's why we're blowing up socially on Fox Sports Radio.
Get ready. Here it comes. Yeah. Oh, we have a clarification. We have an update. I gave you an unbelievable stat that was incorrect. That Giannis getting 55, that's the most points without making a three-pointer since 1979 when they first introduced the three-point shot in the NBA. No, it's not. It's the wrong stat of the day. I'm finding that according to our researcher, our great researcher, our former researcher, John, just kidding, Todd. He should have said, while attempting without making a three since 2000, not 1979, because there have been several players who've scored at least 55 without the benefit of a three-pointer. LaMarcus Aldridge, Jermaine O'Neal, Shaquille O'Neal, Tom Chambers, and Karl Malone at the lone shooting two.
Stat of the day, stat of the day.
Here's one. At least I think this is right. The last player to score at least 55 points while not making a three-pointer was...
Welcome to the Read Scripture podcast. The goal of Read Scripture is to get people alone with God in His Word. For more information, visit readscripture.org.
Well, this week we read the first half of the book of Isaiah, and
your book was the first book I read, Crazy Love.
it's tough to read. And it's tough because it's springtime. It's tough because it's the book of Isaiah. It's tough because the first half is really about God's judgment, and it just seems like over and over so repetitive. And so it's very tempting to skim this part or skip this part. Okay, I get it. He judges him. He judges him. He judges him. But let's have a little more reverence for the Word of God and say, you know what? Maybe there's a reason why God puts so many of these passages in Scripture that have that God even though it's not true of my experience. And here in the book of Isaiah, you've got so much about God's judgment there, but there's a purpose to it all. There's something here where God wants to humble the arrogance of man. In chapter 2, he says it over and over. Verse 11, the haughty looks of man shall be brought low, the lofty pride of men shall be humbled, and the Lord alone will be exalted in that day. For the Lord of hosts has a day against all that is proud and lofty, against all that is lifted up, and it shall be brought low. See, one of the things about judgment is that nothing humbles us like judgment. What can be more humbling